Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's THE Student webinar about funding your degree in Canada. I'm Jamie with THE Student, and today I'm joined by Dami, an Immigration and Consultant Administrator from Apply Board. We hope that today's session will give you some sound advice on how to understand and prepare for the cost of studying in Canada, and also why the investment is so worthwhile. Today's event is sponsored by Empower Financing, and later we'll be joined by Sasha from Empower to talk about their services. So we have a jam-packed session. We hope that you'll leave with a better understanding of where to look for funding options and how to financially plan for your education. We will, of course, be happy to answer your questions. So please do drop them in the Q&A. And just know that we're unlikely to be able to answer questions that are really specific to your particular circumstances. And unfortunately, eligibility for various forms of funding can be based on so many different things: where you're from, what you want to study, where you want to study. So we'll certainly do our best. And like I said, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A, and we will try to get to as many of them as we can. Sami, before we jump in, do you want to just take a moment to introduce yourself and Apply Board and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Hi, everyone. Good morning from Canada. I think it's afternoon in the UK. And I'm happy to be here. I'm an immigration consultant administrator at Apply Board. And what we do at Apply Board is we assist students to find schools in Canada, in the UK and Australia. We look at your interests, we discuss your goals, and based on that, we search programs that best suit your needs. Currently, my role is to ensure that you have a seamless visa service. I review all your documents and assist towards visa processing to ensure that every student gets the opportunity to study in Canada.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here with us today and for sharing your expertise with the students in our audience. I want to start with a question about just the investment in your education, particularly in a degree in Canada. I think this year has been really hard for a lot of students who are thinking about studying abroad, wondering whether it's worth the investment, not knowing if they'll be on campus, studying virtually, what that campus experience will be like. And I think maybe you'll be able to talk a little bit about just why it's such a valuable experience still, and why it's a worthwhile investment for students to make in their education. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and hopefully some reassuring words for the students who are in the audience today.
Regardless of the fact that a lot of students will not be able to study physically right now, there's not much to lose aside from the fact that you are not physically in Canada, but the whole experience that students get is the same. You are going to learn with different students from different culture, different backgrounds, and it has a huge impact on who you are. It helps you to become adaptable, become a great team player, because you will study in groups, have to do assignments together. And I believe that this is a valuable life lesson that every student should have. And a recent survey says that 64% of employers consider studying abroad very important. So your certificate is important, regardless of the fact that there's a pandemic at the moment and you're not able to physically be here. Studying abroad gives students the opportunity to apply theoretical knowledge into practical. So in Canada, there are courses that enable students to do what we call capstone, where you have to relate with local employers, companies, do research on their behalf. So regardless of the fact that you are not here physically, you're still able to, make contact with companies, shadow them, do internship, even make presentations. And, these are the skills that employers are looking for, when they want to employ someone. So regardless of the fact that you are not physically here, you still, gain these valuable experiences. And you make friends with people, you improve your language skills. And one very important advantage, studying in Canada, regardless of the fact that you're studying from home, is the postgraduate work permit. So it doesn't stop you. The fact that you're studying at home does not stop your eligibility for postgraduate work permit. And that's the pathway for students to permanent residency status in Canada. So let's say you study for a year, you may be eligible for 1 year postgraduate work permit. And from that, you translate into a permanent resident. If you study for 2 years, online, or 4 years, you may be eligible for a 2-year 3-year postgraduate work permit. So regardless of the fact that you are not physically here in Canada, there's still so much you can gain, from studying, at home. And we believe that the pandemic will be over very soon. And, you would be able to experience the culture of Canadians and experience the weather. I know a lot of students are looking forward to winter, especially for people who are from countries where they've not experienced winter. And we believe that this will be over soon. But overall, there's no much difference. You're going to be getting a value for your money. And yes, you're going to experience everything.
Yeah, and I think we've talked a few times throughout Funding Week in various sessions about the notion of, yes, of course, the degree is of value and what you will learn in the classroom is of value, but there's also just so much value in being in the classroom with students from different cultures and different backgrounds and immersing yourself in another culture. And we do believe that campuses will be able to reopen slowly and safely, and that students will be able to have that experience. So it certainly is worthwhile. And you also mentioned, obviously the sort of careers aspect of attending university abroad and it preparing you for the workplace and helping you to develop those soft skills, but also giving you opportunities to build a network and to intern and all of those things that you really can't put a price tag on. I mean, those are just such invaluable experiences. I do think one of the things we've heard this week from students as we've been going through Funding Week is just the difficulty of finding information about funding. So I definitely want to talk a little bit about that today, but before we jump into finding funding and what sources of funding are available, I want to talk a little bit about how students should plan for sort of the total cost of studying abroad. I think that can be kind of the first hurdle that students encounter as they're researching universities. They see maybe the tuition and fees or even the accommodation and the room and board, and they think, oh, okay, that's it. I just need to get funding for those two things and we'll be covered. And those certainly are the two biggest expenses. But obviously students have to consider lots of different things when they're planning for this investment. I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about some of those things they need to remember to account for when they're thinking about studying abroad.
Yes, so one common mistake, like you've rightly said, that a lot of students make is, focusing on just the tuition for a year. For Canada, we have 10 provinces and 3 regions in Canada. Now, searching for schools in Canada and the tuition cost varies by province. Some provinces are more expensive than the other, while others are cheaper. So one thing you need to start with is, what province do you want to study in? Research on the province first, and then you look at, okay, what are the schools that offer the program I'm looking to study, and what is the tuition cost? So on the average, if you are looking to study in a university, on the average is about 25,000 Canadian dollars per year for tuition. Now, if you're looking to study in a college, that's about, on the average, 15,000 Canadian dollars. So colleges are cheaper than the universities. So you need to decide, do I want to study in a university or in a college, and what province? Now, say, for example, you are studying for 2 years, a diploma course in a college. So that would be 30,000 Canadian dollars. Now, I'll be saying dollars is not USD, it's Canadian dollars. So if 15,000 Canadian dollars is the average tuition for a year, so for 2 years that you're studying, you should, budget at least 30,000 Canadian dollars. Now, we look at housing and feeding. You definitely need an accommodation when you are in Canada. And I'll be using Ontario, it's one of the provinces in Canada as an example. So we usually advise students to have at least 12,000 Canadian dollars to cover their housing, their feeding, and their utilities. Now, you need to understand that in Canada, accommodations is paid monthly. I know in some countries, accommodation is paid yearly, but in Canada, it's monthly. And so depending on what you want as a student, you need to decide, do I want to stay on campus where they have the residence, the meal plans, and you have to check the school's website to know how much that costs. And it's actually cheaper if you go for for shared rooms. That's what a lot of students do. If they want to stay on campus, they look for shared rooms where the cost is a bit less expensive, but this would be on the school's website. But most of the students would prefer to do off-campus living on their own or with families. And I see a lot of students who decide, okay, I just want one room, I would share living space, I would share the other kitchen, and so that might cost at least maybe 650 Canadian dollars or 800 Canadian dollars per month, inclusive of utilities. So if you have 12,000 Canadian dollars for your total living expense for 2 years, we'll say 24,000 Canadian dollars. That's plus your tuition. Now we're talking about transportation. Sometimes, if you are not living on campus, you might need to transport yourself from your accommodation to school. I was also an international student, in Canada some years back. And I remember that we paid transportation twice. That's 2 terms. And, there are discounts for students. So I paid $300 for a term. And for 2 terms, that was $600. So $1,200. Another thing you should look into is health insurance. So it's important that every international student in Canada, has a coverage on health insurance. And depending on the province, provinces like Alberta, British Columbia, New Brunswick provide provisional health care plans for their students. But provinces like Ontario do not provide provincial healthcare plans. So the students need to pay for a private health insurance. And it's roughly at about $600. Sometimes it's inclusive in the breakdown of the school's tuition. So if you are going to be studying for 2 years and you are paying a private health insurance for $600, that's another $1,200. You need to also look into the cost of textbooks and stationaries. So it's expected that, for each program, you will be required to buy a textbook. And on the average, you can look at 800 to 1,000 Canadian dollars. Now, a lot of students have ways to, reduce this cost. And sometimes you buy online textbooks instead of the hard copy books. They are cheaper. You can buy used books on Amazon. Sometimes if you have friends who have studied the course that you are studying at the moment and they have books, you can borrow from them. The libraries are available for students to borrow books and return. So that can help offset and reduce the cost of books. And so if you have to buy and it's costing 800 Canadian dollars, so for 2 years, let's say 1,600 Canadian dollars. Another fee to look at is student fees. So some schools will require that you pay union and administration fee, usually roughly around 650 Canadian dollars. And some of these administration fees can be, you can pick and choose which one you want, depending on what is available to your school. Like I said, different schools with different packages and different province with different packages. Now, you also need to think about miscellaneous. You need to buy a phone. Sometimes international students' phone do not work here in Canada. I've had friends who had to buy phones because their phone could not work here. You need to buy Wi-Fi, and I must say that Wi-Fi, the cost of Wi-Fi is a little bit more expensive in Canada than other countries. So you need to have Wi-Fi for you to study. Entertainment and clothing, you need to maybe go see a movie, buy clothes for yourself. So you can budget at around 600 Canadian dollars. So say you are studying for 2 years, it's 1,200 Canadian dollars. Now you need to ask yourself, do I want to travel? Do I want to fly back home? Do I want to visit my family within 2 years that I'll be studying? Now you need to think about flights. How much would flight cost if you have to travel back home? And a lot of airlines give student discounts, on flights. So you need to research, check what airlines you want to fly with, what is the discount that is available for students. And one very important thing is to, factor in inflation rate. So in Canada, the inflation rate on the average has been relatively stable. For the past years, it's been 2%. So you need to factor that in. So I would say a total cost for just 1 year, for your study is about 30,000 Canadian dollars to 50,000 Canadian dollars if you decide to study in a college or a university. So that is just for 1 year. And you need to factor your exchange rate as well. Different countries have different exchange rates. Exchange rate can be volatile, the fluctuations, the changes. So you need to also factor that in. So I want to say Canada is one of the cheapest place, if not the cheapest place to study when you compare to other developed countries. So yes, on the average, 30 to 50,000 Canadian dollars for 1 year, and you need to split that across the number of years that you'll be studying, factoring, the inflation rate and then your exchange rate currency.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. That's an incredibly thorough breakdown of the costs. And I think what we've really highlighted is just the importance of students, really thinking about all of these costs in advance so that they're not taken by surprise by anything after they've already enrolled or after they've arrived on campus, but that, it's possible to plan for and be aware of all of the costs that might come up and to make sure that you've sort of prepared for that. Now that we've talked about what it's going to cost, I think obviously the next sort of logical thing is to talk about what are some sources of funding that students can look at to help support or supplement what they may be able to provide on their own to bring that cost, that personal cost down a little bit. So where would you direct students in terms of thinking about other funding options, other sources of funding, what resources are out there for them? How generous are universities for international students, kind of all of that information, because we certainly don't want this session to be, scary that we've outlined all of the costs. We want students to really understand that there are a lot of options out there to help them study abroad.
And so in Canada, generally, there are not a lot of scholarships or funding options available, partly because, the tuition is one of the lowest in the world. And, you'll be getting the most of your money. Having said that, there are still a few sources of fundings that students have been able to access in the past. But this is where I will start from. I would say start from home. Start searching from home. Locate the Department of Education in your country, non-governmental organizations. Some countries provide loans from their financial institution. I'm aware of India. You're able to get loans from your country. Approach that. Start from home first, and once you've exhausted all options, then you can start looking, outward. So aside from starting from home, there are scholarships available. They are limited. They are highly competitive. Nevertheless, you have to apply for most of the scholarships, and some of them are actually awarded automatically. So I've had a student who made good grades from high school and then just applied for a particular program, and automatically, she was reviewed, her documents were reviewed towards the scholarship that the school had to offer. And I think they offered at about 2,500 thousand scholarship, yes, for a year. And this has to be maintained. You need to check the eligibility first. Most times, the general eligibility for scholarships are good academic standing. Maybe you have a volunteering experience. Some scholarships will require that you provide a letter of explanation or an essay or do a video of yourself talking about why you won the scholarship. So depending on the eligibility, that qualifies students for scholarships. However, like I said, some of them are awarded automatically. Another way to access scholarship is to contact the financial aid directly of the school. For your intended, let's say you want to study at Conestoga College, contact the office directly to get advice on how to pay for your program. If you are looking for a research program, this is for postgraduate students. The first thing to do is try to reach out to as many supervisors. Go to the university's webpage, research on which supervisors are available that will supervise something that you are interested in, something that you have similar interest in. Reach out to them. So I had a student who reached out, a student from Nigeria actually. She is a maths graduate, and she reached out to someone, I can't remember what university now, and he didn't have funding at the moment to take on any research students, but he pointed her to another department, agriculture department, that had funding at the time. So what the student needed to do was, to write up some mathematical ways to, solve some agricultural problems, and she was able to get the funding. So definitely try to reach out to the schools, reach out to your intended supervisors. They might have funding that they can offer to you. If they do not have that, they might point you in the right direction because they have, so many of these information in their hands. And I need to stress that students should beware of scholarship scams. you should never have to pay someone to find scholarships. And you just need to search for yourself, research. I would advise have a calendar, and map out what are the deadlines for scholarships that you have seen that you are eligible to apply for, and start early because it's highly competitive, so that you can prepare early. Another funding that is available is bursaries. So bursaries are offered to students with financial need. So there's usually an application for that, and you may need to submit maybe a need assessment of some sort, or maybe your bank statement to verify your finances that, oh yes, this student actually needs the financial help. In Canada, there's also the work study opportunity. Students are allowed to work 20 hours during school. So you can, I must say that you should not rely solely on the work study option as a way to finance your education, because you want to focus on your academics. You don't want to lose track on your academics, and you don't want your academics to suffer because you are trying to, find work to pay your fees. So 20 hours during school, you can work. And then during breaks, Canada allows international students to work for 40 hours. And take, for example, Ontario. The minimum wage in Ontario is $14.25 per hour. So you can, do the calculation and see. So it's not so much money, but it's something that can help you with your living expense, your day-to-day house rent, utility bills, your feeding, that sort of thing. You can also look into co-op programs. So in Canada, we have what we call co-op. Co-op is like internships. So I would advise students, when you're searching for a program, look for the ones that have co-op. That because it gives you an avenue to work and get paid for work, and they're working in your relevant field. So let's say you're studying human resource management, for example, and that program has a co-op option. You are able to work as an intern or as a co-op student with an organization in a human resource, department, which not only gives you money, it gives you the work experience, and it also helps you to secure a job upon completion, of your studies, because now you have relevant work experience in the field and you've made networks. So a lot of students even get rehired by the companies where they've taken their co-op. Student loans. I would say because most provincial student aids are restricted to Canadian citizens and permanent residents. International students would likely need to borrow from a private lending institution or a bank. Now, you need to research which private lending institution or what bank in Canada offers, student loans to the school I am in, because some of them have particular schools that they provide these loans for. So, however, you might also need a citizen to co-sign, when you are getting the loan. So you should also research that. Places to find fundings, there are a lot of them. Currently, Apply Board has fundings for STEM, women in STEM for change. So if you're a woman, you're thinking, or you're looking to study a program in STEM, this is one that you should check out for, applyboard.com. I would share the link with Jamie, the links of so many places that you can search. I'll share them with Jamie after the webinar. You can also look to the Government of Canada in international scholarships, IEFA, that's the International Education Financial Aid website. It has extensive list of grants, scholarships, and loans available to anyone who wants to study in a foreign country. Edu Canada, you can also look to Edu Canada. And there's Trudeau Foundation as well. I will send all these links, Vanier, there's so many of them I would send to Jamie at the end of this talk. But like I said, there are different eligibilities, there are different scholarships that are country specific, developing countries, gender specific scholarships that you can explore. All you need to do is take out the time, research, start early, map out your calendars, and make sure. I believe that everyone can get it. So one thing you need to do is make sure your grades are strong, and make sure that you have the edge, you stand out, from all your meeting all the criteria. Yeah.
And I think, again, what you really just highlighted is that there are so many avenues that can help you, supplement what you'll be paying for university. You just need to really be organized and do the research and do it early. I mean, the number of times I've seen students who have, gotten their heart set on a particular university, but haven't included the funding options and scholarships and things like that as a part of their early research, then ultimately are disappointed because it turns out that that particular institution wouldn't be a realistic choice for them. So I think, the importance of having those conversations with your family or with whoever may be helping you to pay for your education, if there is someone, and then having those conversations really early, and then using those conversations to inform your research about funding opportunities and about which institutions would be the right fit for you.
Yeah, true. And you can combine different scholarship options. You can get $1,000 here, $2,000 here. So you need to start early and see what is available to help offset, your tuition cost. So once you start early, you know which one you're getting into the final stage, which one is giving you. Yes. So the crux of it is start early, research.
Yeah, and don't be discouraged or deterred from studying abroad because of the cost, because there are so many resources out there to help support in that regard. I'm sure we could continue talking about this for hours. There's so much good information to share, and you have been just so thorough in terms of helping students really understand the cost and what's available to them out there. Thank you so much for your time and for your expertise. And of course, students can find more information at Times Higher Ed, but also through Apply Board. I'm now going to introduce Sasha Ramani, who is with Empower Financing. And Sasha's going to spend the last 10 minutes or so of our session talking about Empower and what they do. Again, if you've got questions for Sasha, please pop them into the Q&A, and I will jump in after his short presentation, and we'll answer as many questions as we can. So Sasha, over to you.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to meet all of you. And actually, a lot of you have asked questions about funding, and that's exactly what we at Empower are suited to help out with. So I'm going to quickly share my screen. Jamie, can you see my slides? Great. So very quickly, we at Empower, we offer financing through loans and scholarships to high promise students from around the world. This means that if you are looking for essentially money, funding to help you study abroad in Canada or the United States, we can provide that funding to help you further your academic aspirations. We're the #1 student loan provider for international students. Don't listen to me, listen to these independent sources, NerdWallet, Investopedia, and US News and World Report. We offer loans that do not require a cosigner, do not require a collateral, and we support about 400 different colleges and universities around the US and Canada. How do you apply? You can apply very quickly on our website. It takes just a couple of seconds to check your loan eligibility. You can probably do it even while I'm talking right now. It's so quick and easy. And again, we offer no cosigner loans and scholarships to students from almost every country in the world, about 200 different countries at about 400 different universities and colleges around the US and Canada. We also a lot of other free services for our students, including visa and immigration support. We help students to build a credit profile. We offer a lot of help with career prep and resume reviews. I know one of the questions was about the job market, and we can help with that through our resume review and our job interview training support services. We also offer a lot of cultural assimilation and cultural support and pandemic-related support to help our students cope with the current COVID pandemic situation. These are free services we offer all of our students, so please don't hesitate to take advantage of this. And finally, how do you apply? Again, just very quickly on our website, all the information's there. I don't want to talk about slides too long. I'd rather answer all of your questions, but you can, of course, reach out to us on our website, apply very quickly on our website, and all the resources will be there at your fingertips.
That's great. Thank you, Sasha, so much. Again, if you've got questions for Sasha, drop them into the chat here. There's a question that just came in, Sasha, just asking, do Empower scholarships come with bonding? The answer to that one?
I think by bonding, the student means like a cosigner or collateral. I think that's what the student means. If I'm misunderstanding, please, please correct me. No, our loans do not require a cosigner. They do not require a collateral. It doesn't matter if you have a nice house. We don't look at that. We don't care about that. We care about, are you a smart student? Are you enrolled at a great school in the US or Canada? At the end of the day, that's the most important criteria.
And can you also just clarify that your services and the loans that you provide are available to students who are studying at all levels, so undergrad, master's? Does it also include PhD programs?
It does, absolutely. Undergraduate, master's, and PhD. The only restriction around that is that students must be within 2 years of graduation. So if it's an undergraduate student, they generally need to be in their 3rd or 4th year of a 4-year program.
Fab. One other question I think that is just kind of around the timeline of when students should be applying, which you sort of partially answered just there, but maybe just kind of walk through, like, at what point in the process should students be thinking about loans? At what point should they be getting in touch with Empower, and what's kind of the timeline from application to, the loan being paid out to their institution?
Yeah, that's a great point. We can move very quickly. So if you need a loan next week, we could probably process it very, very quickly. That being said, please don't wait that long. The earlier you come to us, the earlier we can start helping you out. You can start a loan process even before you apply to schools, even before you get accepted. But at some point before we actually fund the loan, of course, you're going to need to be accepted. We're going to need to see your enrollment and everything else. But a lot of students actually come to us before they've applied for any school. Most students actually come to us thinking, should I apply for the University of Toronto? I know Empower will need to fund me. I'm only going to apply to the school if Empower can give me a loan there. So we help students at all parts of the journey, before they've applied to school, after they've been accepted to school, or even when they're currently enrolled. A lot of students only need us for 1 semester or maybe their final year. We can help students at all parts of the journey. So please don't hesitate to come to us, whether you're just looking, or maybe you're exploring, you're not looking that seriously yet, or if you're all the way to you're already enrolled and maybe just for 1 or 2 semesters, you might need a little bit of financial help.
Great. Another great question just about repayment periods, which I assume are likely variable depending on all kinds of different circumstances, but what sort of insider advice can you give around loan repayment periods?
So Empower loans all last for about 10 years after graduation, but it does not cost anything to pay off early. That means if you did a great job in Canada or anywhere in the world, you can pay off the loan right away and there's no penalty, no cost or anything to do so. Of course, we understand nobody wants to pay off a loan if they don't have to, but of course, we want to make sure that you do have that time. You have 10 years if you need it, so that so that students are able to carry it for as long or as short time as they generally need to.
Great. I think that flexibility is really important for students. And I think, it can be a real cause of stress for students in terms of knowing that the loan is helping to support their education, but also that repayment period is, sort of going to hang over their heads. So the flexibility on the repayment and also the duration of repayment period helps. Another question that I would guess is variable, but just a question about interest rates and I think especially related to how students can sort of understand what that total loan amount is, what the total repayment amount is going to be. How do you handle interest rates? And again, what insider advice can you provide on that?
Yeah, so we offer a wide range of interest rates from 6.5 on the low end to 14 on the higher end. We also offer a lot of discounts for students who do some very easy metrics. Like, for example, signing up for automatic payments will instantly get you a discount. Everyone can do that, like on day 1. So these are very easy discounts, which anybody can get. And I should emphasize that the fact that our loans require no cosigner, no collateral, nothing else, means that you're not risking, let's say, your parents' property or your parents' credit score or your uncle's credit score by working with Empower. And that's partly why we were rated the #1 international student loan provider by multiple different organizations, because they see that not only are the rates reasonably, really attractive from 6.5 to 14, but there's no reason to find a cosigner, find a collateral, which is often the biggest difficulty that international students face when looking to study in the US or Canada.
Yeah, great. I guess just the last question in our last couple of minutes here. There's a question from a student in the audience about, what can they use the loan to cover? Does it go directly to their institution to cover only tuition? Can it help with accommodation and other expenses? And can you just kind of delineate for them what the loan funding can actually be used for?
Absolutely. So loans are dispersed directly to the university, which saves a lot of fees for the student. You know, we're always trying to save student fees, but loans can be used to cover tuition, housing, meals, insurance. There's a very, like, essentially any education related expense, an Empower student loan is able to cover. So please don't worry about that. We are able to cover all education related expenses.
Effectively, any bill that you would need to pay to the university could be covered or partially covered by money that you're receiving from a loan.
Well, not just to the university, even off-campus housing. If students, they don't want to live in student housing, if they want to live off campus, Empower loans can absolutely be used for that as well. And we work with schools. So even though we're giving money to the school, most of the time schools will help you to pay for off-campus housing or expenses, even if they're not at the school itself.
Wonderful. Perfect. Well, Sasha, that's been incredibly helpful. Thank you. There were lots of great questions from the audience. So obviously this is a really important topic for them. And we really thank you for being here, for sponsoring today's event, but also just for sharing this really valuable information about loans, because we know that it's an area that can be a bit murky for students, and this has provided a lot of clarity. To the audience, thank you so much for joining us and for your thoughtful questions. We've got tons of content up on timeshighereducation.com/student. That's such a mouthful every time. But for Funding Week, there are loads of resources there for you to explore and learn more about scholarship opportunities and funding. We had a few sessions this week, which will be available on our YouTube channel shortly. And we've got one final session for Funding Week, which will be starting in about 25 minutes, about funding your degree in the US. So if you're also considering the United States, please do join us for that. Many thanks to everyone, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.